What's up, guys? I'm Mel from Fortin Amps, and on this episode of Does It Grind, we put the Boss Wazacraft Metal Zone to the test to make it sound like this. Alright, so before you guys click off this video and go, whoa, why on earth are you putting a boost in front of a metal zone? It already has tons of gain. Well, to put it straight, the grind is not just the boost. It clears up your low end, just like I've said in like all of these videos. So on this episode of Does It Grind, we do the metal zone justice and do it right. We use it as a preamp. So enough talk, let's dial this thing in. Alright, so this signal chain is a little different than usual, but I'll explain as I go. So this guitar is a Legator Opus standard prototype going into the Roach, splitting off into the Zuul for our gate, and we are going into our grind, then we are going into the metal zone. The metal zone is a preamp pedal, so it goes in the send and return of your amp, bypassing its main distortion channels, and it takes over your distortion channels. So the way we're doing this is we're going into the metal zone, and then we're going directly into my interface, and we're going into the Neural DSP Cali, but we're gonna turn off the pedal section and the amp section, leaving only the cab section. And that should emulate what it's like to drive this through a power amp, or the send and return of your amp. So enough talk about the chain, let's get to chugging. Alright, that sounds pretty solid. It's just a bit quiet for me, so I'm going to bring the level up just so it gives a bit more body and saturation going into my cab sim. So with this particular metal zone, I'm using the Wazacraft, which has the standard EQ curve and gain structure and the custom EQ curve and gain structure. So you can hear the differences here. Even though the custom is supposed to be a bit more modern, I'm kind of gravitating to the standard with everything at 12 o'clock. That might change as I dial stuff in. But this sounds a bit more classic rock, which means it's going to give me that headroom to use the grind. And just a reminder, when I do these Does It Grinds, I usually use the grind for its EQ characteristics more than a boost. I know I'm pushing the grind into super high gain amps, but when I use the grind, I tend to get a bit of a clearer tone and a lot more percussive pick attack, which is what I want in the genres that I'm working in. Alright, so right off the back, I'm noticing things are a bit dark, even though my guitar is really bright. So with it off, even if I switch to the single coils, it's a bit dark. So with that, I'm going to see if I can get my brightness back by bringing up the treble and the low end just to see what it would sound like if I really did push everything. Sick. So alright, now I'm going to pull back the low end to where it was. That's a bit more what I'm going for. So a little bit of a bright to give me that pick attack and clarity that I'm looking for. That articulation and a little bit of a cleared but tight low end. I'm going to see if I can find more of that pick attack and more of that clarity by adjusting my mid, just for that added clarity. All right, that sounds pretty cool. See, I like where all of that's at right now. For when I'm playing like E. But when I hit the lowest note of my guitar, it sounds a little bit more muffled. I'm looking for a little bit more clarity. So what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna bring back the distortion to give me back some dynamics. All right, that sounds pretty cool. I know that I'm gonna probably boost it with the grind. When I use the grind in these Does It Grind series, I don't traditionally use the grind for a lot of boost. I tend to use it more for its EQ curve. So what it does, it clears up the low end and gives me a little bit of that spanky pick attack that really helps me tighten up with the drums in the mix and really gives me a percussive tone. All right, so let's turn the grind on and see how it sounds like. All right, so my gain sounds a little bit thin because I feel like my chugs aren't as beefy. So let me just turn up the distortion or the grind. It's pretty similar when you try them both out side by side. Right, so that sounds pretty sick. I like this. I feel like the pick attack is a little harsh, so I'm gonna dial it back just a tad. All right, so that sounds solid to me. Let me see what it sounds like with the grind on and off. And let me see what it sounds like with the grind on. So you can tell that the grind really does bring out the pick attack, especially in those lower register notes. But it still sounds great for stuff in standard. You can see. I know that it sounds like you lost a little bit of low end just because you hear a bit more high end. So I'm going to try to bring back the low end with the metal zone. And it's easy to match that low end. Just turn the grind on and off. Now it sounds a bit woofy when you turn the grind on. Tons of mud, and it's probably not articulate when I'm doing like crazy riffs like. So let's hear it with the grind back on. I still feel like I probably added a little bit more low end than I wanted to, so I'm going to bring it back just because I know the mix that I'm going to have is a little bit more tight. And then I can bring up my Zuul's threshold just to give me more of a percussive tone. All right, so lastly, I didn't check to see if I like the custom mode on this Wazacraft, but let me switch to it and see if I dig it. So between the two, I think I'm leaning more towards the standard tone just because the tone that I'm looking for is a little bit more percussive. I want it to be a little bit more bright, and I don't want it as fat in the low end just because I want to leave space in the mix for my kicks and bass guitar. I know that I can probably adjust these EQ parameters to get a similar tone, but I like where I'm at now. So with all that being said, let's see it in a mix. Alright guys, I hope you guys liked that tone as much as I did, and I hope that cleared things up about how to use a boost and how to use it with a preamp like this. And if it did, please give this video a thumbs up, ring that bell for notifications, sub to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below about what preamp we should probably try next on Does It Grind. Alright, my name's Mel from Fortin Amps, and I'll catch you on the next one.